What a weekend it's been in the Olympics. Dreams have been made in the NBA with the NBA draft and an absolutely chaotic MLB trade deadline that we just went through. This is episode 155 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy as always. Let's take a look with how we did last episode. And Brett, you were right. My long shot Jalen Green play did not work. It was worth a shot though, but the bank of Brett Levy did get $5, I believe. And I lost my pick of the pod to your Levy lock, so you gained a game on me there. And looking at the Olympics, I struck out on all four occasions. The women's soccer team, they did beat the Netherlands. It just took penalty kicks in order to do so. And that golf was fantastic. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But Matsuyama, Siwoo Kim, and Sung J.M. all coming up short. None of them being the outright champion as Xander Schauffele took that win. And what an amazing Olympics this has been for me so far. I've been paying a lot of attention.
Yeah, you've enjoyed it, Higgins, for sure. I, on the other hand, have been a little preoccupied. It closed on a house, so your $5 went towards a bottle of champagne. Thank you very much, Higgins. Uh, Also, some of my winnings, Higgins. I actually won on this last episode, so I could afford said bottle of champagne. I won a bet with Higgins. I won on my Josh Giddey bet. I won on my Davion Mitchell over 8.5. He goes at 9, Higgins. So how about that? Sneaking it in by the hook there. Jonathan Kuminga under 7.5. He goes at 7, I believe, Higgins. So
Yep,
uh
just beating that over
just
under.
beat that one there too. So we did some good things. We did some bad things. Under 8.5 for Keon Johnson. He was not one of the people to bump Davion Mitchell back. Cameron Thomas, I said under 24.5. Well, the Brooklyn Nets saw value in Cameron Thomas, but unfortunately they picked at pick 27, Higgins. And then I won some baseball bets, won my Levy lock, which is always nice. So, pretty good last episode for me.
Absolutely, and like I said, you won your pick, your Levy lock. I lost my pick of the pod, so that puts you up 2.5 games now. I'm 23, 26, and 1 on the year. You are 25, 23, and 2 on the year with your Levy locks. Jumping into the Beginner's Boulevard, we're going to talk about a basic, quick little term called getting down. And that's just when a bettor is making a wager, right, Brett?
Yeah, Higgins, you getting down on this game? Are you making a
Get
wager
down
on
on
this
it.
game? Yeah,
Get
exactly.
down on
So
it.
there you go. And Higgins sings. So, more importantly, I want to hear you sing some karaoke for us, Higgins.
Oh, we got to find ourselves a bar for you to see me sing some karaoke. But let's jump into our Olympics now, Brett, because it has been plenty of captivating. For anyone that follows me on Twitter, you saw that I was enthralled by the Olympics on Saturday evening for the final day of the Olympic golf, even watching some men's basketball and stuff like that. And that's what we're going to talk about because on Monday night we have two basketball games, one between the Spain and the United States teams, and one game between Slovenia and Germany. And Brett, we're going to start with the Slovenia Germany game because that is the earlier game. And to be honest, bet with Luca. I have learned this lesson in the Olympics and it is working well. Minus 14 is the most heavily the Slovenian team has been favored that I've noticed so far. Seems like the books are finally starting to wake up at what Luca can really do as a floor general, even outside of Dallas when he's with his home country team. And minus 14 against a team like Germany does not bother me when we see how on Sunday morning, Saturday night, depending on how you want to look at it. Slovenia played Spain, and they came back in the third, being down by as much as 12 points to come back and grab a win. That shows that they never gave up. I think that they're going to dominate Germany, though. Never going to have to come back from a deficit like that, though. So 14 points, not too big for me. I'm going to be jumping on that line.
Yeah, Higgins, again, I've had just haven't been watching very much, but I did read a little bit about the Slovenia and Spain game, Higgins, and I guess Slovenia, or excuse me, rather, Spain threw some interesting defenses at Slovenia, potentially going a box and one on Luka Doncic at times. and I saw he did not have his 48-point output, rather scoring in the teens in that game. So it is interesting to see how Slovenia and Germany match up in this one. Is Germany going to throw out some boxing ones to try and keep Luca in the teens? Are they going to blitz on the pick and rolls to get the ball out of his hands and just make other guys beat him? The strategy may have not have worked for Spain, but it certainly kept Luka Doncic at bay.
The reason it didn't really work for Spain because you're right, Luca did get held to the teens in scoring, which is much lower than he's been doing so far in the rest of these Olympics. And that's really because he continued to trust his teammates and trust that the ball would find the back of the net. And so he kept trusting his teammates and distributing that ball late into the fourth quarter, and shots finally began falling. When you double team Luca like this, they were finding that open man. They were swinging the ball rather well, and as long as they keep up that ball movement, I think they'll be able to do the same thing against Germany. Looking at another Olympic men's basketball game that's going on Monday night, though, we have America against Spain. And this is an American team that has showed us some worry, showed us some problems. But I think they are starting to get on the other end of that. And being 12-point favorites over a Spanish team that just blew a win to Slovenia on Sunday morning, Monday night, or Saturday night, depending on what day you look at it. Uh, because Spain blew that lead, because Spain has a lot more older leadership, they don't have the young spring to necessarily bounce back for some of these games. They don't have the young guys that can just completely turn the page in a sense. So I'm going to be looking at the United States. I'm going to be looking at Kevin Durant, who just became the Olympic scoring leader for America, and I think minus 12 they're going to get it done. So I'm taking both favorites on Monday night in Olympic basketball.
Higgins, I got to ask you a question. Is Sergio Llull on the Spanish Olympic roster?
No.
No? All right. Well, then I'd go USA. But if he was playing, then I'd lean Spain with the points because,
Sorry, yes, Sergio Llull is, but he's playing off the bench, so he's getting limited minutes.
eh, still one of the great Euro guards out there, Higgins. I look him to shred the U.S. on defense, so maybe I would lean Spain plus the 12. I don't know. That seems like a big line with Sergio and Ricky Rubio in the backcourt.
Yeah, very interesting. Spain's been mainly playing a three forward set, which will be interesting, but all of these positions are rather flexible in basketball, especially on these Olympic rosters. Because if you look at the American roster, Brett, what do you think Kevin Durant's position is?
I mean, I would guess he plays the four.
No, apparently he's a guard.
Oh, okay.
He's listed as a guard, so that shows you how much these positions at the Olympics on these rosters really mean. Apparently, Spain runs a three forward set with a center and one guard, but apparently Kevin Durant is a guard, so who knows what it's going to be like. It'll be two interesting games, though. I'm excited to see that. We'll talk about some more basketball in a little bit, Brett. Actually, let's talk about that right now. The NBA, because we had the NBA draft. Your bets looked great. I loved the Josh Giddey play. That turned out to be the pick of the night, I think, for you. And we saw some moves with Russell Westbrook getting traded to the Los Angeles Lakers as well. And so now let's take a look at some of these early favorites before we have the rest of free agency with the NBA draft. And so you see, it's Brooklyn Nets at plus 200, Lakers at plus 400, and then kind of the rest of everybody falling behind with the Bucks following in third at plus 950. I think this is the clear 1-2 NBA Finals favorite as of right now. Isn't it pretty it's pretty apparent, right, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, I would lean that way, but again, injuries obviously change things, Higgins. We saw that this year. So, I mean, I really don't see any value. We haven't even seen free agency kick off yet. We have no idea who's changing teams. I mean, I guess we have some sense. Russell Westbrook's going to the Lakers. So, obviously you have a little bit of a feel, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, Higgins.
It absolutely is. I mean, we have rumors about Bradley Beal, we have rumors about Ben Simmons, we have all these other types of rumors going on. We have Klay Thompson returning from a double injury setback that he had with the torn ACL and then the torn Achilles. He'll be back, so will the Splash Brothers and the Warriors be back? It'll be very interesting to see as this NBA season approaches and we see where the pieces fall with free agency. I mean, the Lakers don't really have enough people to even field a full roster right now. They have a few key pieces, but they have quite a few names they need to put back onto that list. And Brett, let's jump into some NFL right now because training camp is underway. We're starting to see players report. Already starting to see some injuries like we saw with Carson Wentz go down. We don't know the full extent of what that's going to be like. But it made me start to wonder, is there some value already in whether it be these divisional lines, whether it be the conference lines, or even outright Super Bowl champions? I was looking at that AFC South, Brett, and ooh, it is really tempting right now when you look at just the fact that the Titans are not really heavily favored. They're minus 110 to win the AFC South right now. And if Carson Wentz is down, and that's a significant foot injury, I don't really put the Colts in contention. Um, we've heard rumors about the Texans and Deshaun Watson. I even saw rumors. I couldn't tell if they were joking about him playing scout team defense for the at safety and being the fourth string quarterback on their depth chart. That has to be a joke. It has to be. But I mean, uh, these divisional odds right now, I think there might be some early value to look at as these teams approach training camp.
Yeah, I definitely think there's some value, Higgins. I think you brought up a good one, the AFC South. I think the NFC West is very interesting, and I actually, Higgins, pulled the trigger on something. Here I am, week 0 of whatever, the NFL preseason, and I'm pulling the trigger on an NFC West division outright bet. I don't think these odds are right, Higgins. We see the San Francisco 49ers listed at plus 185, the LA Rams listed at plus 195, the Seattle Seahawks plus 270, and the Arizona Cardinals plus 600. I'm hopping all over the Seahawks at plus 270, Higgins, because as soon as the week 1 games tip off, we don't know who the 49ers quarterback's going to be. We don't know how the Los Angeles Rams are going to look with a new quarterback. They're starting running back out for the year with a torn Achilles. So that whole tandem there is going to be different than a year ago. And meanwhile, the Seattle Seahawks bring back their head coach, bring back Russell Wilson, bring back their running back, bring back their 2 leading receivers. Hopefully they upgraded on tight end there. They brought in a tight end this offseason, Higgins, to upgrade from the whatever they were doing a year ago at that position. So I like the Seahawks plus 270 here. And I think when the season kicks off, week 1, Seahawks are going to be 1-0. I don't know what the Rams are going to look like. They square off against Chicago. I think they start Dalton, the Bears I'm talking about, week 1 against the Rams because the Rams defense with Aaron Donald and Brockers and Ramsey and a few others there. I don't know if you necessarily want to throw the rookie to the Wolves week 1, but week 2 I expect to see Fields in there, so we'll see how that plays out. But Rams week 1, unsure. 49ers week 1, unsure. Cardinals, I don't know. I'm not betting on Kingsbury yet. So Pete Carroll and the Seahawks are my bet this early, plus 270.
Yeah, to be honest, I hadn't really looked at this NFC West until you had brought it up, Brett, and I agree with a lot of what you said there. I don't know if I'm necessarily backing Seattle, but I would agree that the Seahawks have the least amount of new questions around their team of any of these NFC West programs. Because, like you said, they have their head coach coming back, they have their quarterback coming back, they have a lot of the similar pieces, and a lot of the issues they had last year are some of the same issues they have this year. I would say the Cardinals have a lot of value on them, though. I know Kingsbury can be tough to trust, but if you don't believe this mystery around DeAndre Hopkins and the tweet he sent out about the vaccine and whether or not he's going to end up playing or whatnot, if you think Hopkins is going to be on the field full time, it's not going to be an issue, then plus 600 might be some juicy value. Also, if you don't believe Chandler Jones is going to get traded, like this news that recently came out, plus 600 might be some decent value for a Cardinals team that actually, to me, looks rather loaded on many sides of the ball and in many aspects. Where you look at the Rams, their defense is spectacular, but you have Matthew Stafford, who comes with question marks because he's only ever been with the Lions and has never actually had to win or be in a situation where he's had to win. San Francisco 49ers, they have the quarterback room that they're going to be dealing with, so who knows? Seattle, I agree. The least amount of new questions, though, so that is a very, very interesting division to take a look at for some potential value, Brett. Let's jump into some money line magic, though, because like I said earlier in this recording, if you follow me on Twitter, then you saw me freaking out on Saturday night about this Olympic golf because round four, Sunday Sunday golf at the Olympics on a Saturday night is a vibe. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, Higgins. Well, I'm gonna need to be filled in because I have no idea what happened in the Olympic golf. All I have in my notes are Sunday Olympic golf, and I was like, "All right, let's go, baby."
All right. Well, let's start off with Rory Sabatini, a man that shot a 7 under through the first 3 days, was sitting 7 strokes out of contention to start on Sunday, and he comes out and on the front nine, he goes 6 under through the first 8 holes and bogeys the ninth hole to shoot a 31 on the front, instantly leaping him into contention as those guys at the top of the leaderboard are starting to tee off. Sabatini finishes with an Olympic record 61 for 10 under on the day, 17 under on the weekend. Xander Schauffele started with a 14 under, leading the pack going into Sunday. He shot a 4 under to hold on to that lead, including a very brutal 18th hole where he had to struggle and work his way out. He hit it right into the woods. He had to punch it out into the fairway for two. And then he hit an absolute dart onto the green within about 5 feet to putt in and save par to win this and not force a playoff with Rory Sabatini. But there was still a playoff because there were 7 people tied for third place, Brett. And this is very interesting. I mean, Rory McIlroy was one of the guys. He has spoken very highly of Olympic golf after coming into it rather skeptical. And it's because by day four, this becomes a different tournament than most of these guys typically play. Typically, they're playing for money at a certain spot, and depending on where you finish, you're gonna earn money, but you'll earn money regardless. In the Olympics, it's only the top 3 spots that matter, and in golf, you don't play in many scenarios that are like this, where it's only the top 3 that matter. So you had a lot of guys taking risks on Saturday and Sunday. You had a lot of guys pushing it really hard, and then so you have 7 guys tied for third. That puts us into a sudden death playoff where they rotate from 18, 10, and 11, and they play those 3 holes on repeat until you have one champion. And finally, at the end of it, CT Pan, who from Taiwan playing for Chinese Taipei, finishes on top out of the 7 golfers playing for the bronze medal. It was fantastic. We saw 2 guys in their 20s win medals. Rory Sabatini, 45 years old, playing for Slovakia, where there's only about 9,000 golfers in the country. I love this. It's fantastic for the sport globally. It won over a lot of the professional golfers, and I think by 2024, we are going to see a much more competitive field because these guys are going to go back to the rest of the tour and tell the others what they are missing out on. This was absolutely fantastic to watch. Cannot recommend it enough.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, Rory Sabatini in contention on Sunday. Not much better than that. Higgins, a throwback to like I don't know, 1999. Rory Sabatini. What a name from the past.
And hey, I'll say it makes me feel smart because my day job, I put out a video on YouTube uh, giving out my picks going into Saturday and Sunday for the golf, and one of the names that I had picked was Rory Sabatini to finish in the top 10. I will say, though, after having bet Olympic golf, I learned my lesson. Betting top 10s isn't really the right way to go, and I'd say even betting the outright champion wasn't the right way to go. Bet the medalists. Bet for who's going to medal. That's how you bet Olympic golf. I'll keep that bookmarked and come back to it in 4 years.
All right, Higgins. 4 year bookmark there. Okay.
All right. Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co, and be sure to add our podcast, The Next Best Bet, in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. Now, Brett, I talked a lot through Moneyline Magic, so please, we're jumping into baseball now. Give us our first pick because I need a break from speaking.
No worries, man. You carried the money line magic. You filled me in. We shouted out our guy Rory Sabatini, and
Cheers to
now
him.
it's time. Yeah, and now it's time to get to this Cleveland Indians Toronto Blue Jays game. Higgins, before we start on this, I actually have a quick question for you. Sorry to throw it
No
back so
worries.
quickly. But what do you think of the Guardians' nickname for the Cleveland Indians?
I think Cleveland didn't quite do their full due diligence because apparently there's a roller derby team that filed for a trademark with the same name, so maybe someone should have been doing a little bit more homework before they announced their name, is what I'm thinking, because we're going to have some interesting battles coming up, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, they're to be honest, they're gonna get it right, but it might cost them a
They'll
few
get it. It might just
extra
cost them some
shekels.
money. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we've got Eli Morgan on the mound for the Cleveland baseball team, and we've got Robbie Ray on the mound for the Toronto Blue Jays. Higgins, run line Cleveland plus 1.5 at plus 130. Toronto minus 1.5 at minus 156. On the money line, you can get Cleveland plus 260, Toronto minus 320. I'm personally looking at this over under, Higgins. Eli Morgan has an ERA north of 7. Robbie Ray, kind of up and down all year himself, has some good starts, has some bad starts. I think these lineups with Jose Ramirez on Cleveland's side, even without Cesar Hernandez, who was traded at the deadline, Jose Ramirez, Framil Reyes, these are some big power bats. They can absolutely take Robbie Ray over that fence. The Blue Jays, just look 1 through 9 in their lineup, Higgins. They have tons of bats. Added Barrios at the deadline. I don't know if it's enough to compete in the AL East, but we will see, Higgins. But I like the over 9.5 minus 106. So a little juice to the under, favoring the sports books, but favoring the betters. If you think 10 runs are scored in this one, minus 106.
Well, like you said, Cleveland has a pitcher on the mound with an ERA north of 7. Cleveland's pretty good at hitting the overs on the year. They're fourth best in the MLB. Toronto hitting unders a little bit more than they're hitting overs on the year, but they're pretty close to 500. I want to stick on this game, though, Brett, because I'm also looking at it. Because whenever I see the run line offering the underdog for positive value, I got to take a closer look at it. So, like you said, we got Morgan versus Ray on the mound. Morgan has an ERA north of 7. Toronto is also back in Toronto. They're not playing in Buffalo anymore. They're playing back in Toronto. They had their opening series at home against the Kansas City Royals over the weekend, and they swept them pretty handedly as well. But now it's Monday. Now everyone's going back to the grind. Now everyone's going to be settled back down a little bit. The adrenaline's going to have settled in now that they're all back in Toronto a little bit. A new series starts. And I don't think it's necessarily going to be all Blue Jays like it was throughout the weekend. And when you look at Cleveland overall so far this year on the run line as an underdog, they're 30-21. They're just over 500 so far cumulatively as a whole against the run line. Toronto's fourth best in the MLB, but Cleveland's ninth best in the MLB against the run line. So they're both doing pretty well at it. Plus 1.5 at plus 130. The value is just too good. I don't think necessarily the Indians win this game. However, I do think that the plus 1.5 value is good enough for me to hope that it just stays within a one run game. So let me have it. Let me have it. Plus 130.
All right, Higgins. Well, I've got one more game I'm on Monday night. The Phillies take on the Nationals. Nationals big sellers over the weekend, trading Trey Turner and Max Scherzer to the Los Angeles Dodgers. But one of the players they got back, Higgins, Josiah Gray. Actually, would you believe it, Higgins? A Lemoyne College graduate. So
Lemoyne dudes?
go, yes, go Josiah Grade, former Lemoyne dude. That is a little joke between Higgins and myself, but we're gonna focus on this baseball game once I stop laughing. But the Nationals, Higgins, plus 105 on the money line against the Philadelphia Phillies, who bullpen continues to just blow game after game after game all year for this team. So I'm going to take the Nats as underdogs because Ranger Suarez is starting for the Phillies. I know nothing about Ranger Suarez, have no opinion on him. So let's say he's a league average starter. I'm going to take Juan Soto and Josh Hamilton against him. And then I'm going to take the Nationals lineup against the Phillies bullpen. I'll take any lineup in baseball against the Phillies bullpen this year, Higgins. It has just been a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look uh at what at Ranger Suarez, and he is a bullpen pitcher. He's a guy that fills in on the bullpen days because he may be a 4-2 starter with a 1.2 ERA, but he has four saves on the year. He has 40 innings worth of pitching on his belt this season. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and give you 5 innings. Excuse me, he's 5-3 on the year, not 4-2. I misspoke. But that's a very interesting one. Brett, to be honest, though, since the Nationals were sellers, this was a stay away game for me because I don't know what to expect from Washington for the rest of the year. I don't really know what to expect from the Phillies because whenever they are listed as favorites on the run line, they're atrocious this year at 14-35. But that doesn't mean that they lose the game. They just don't cover multi-run wins. So I'm staying away from this game. Absolutely, you can't find me on a side with this one.
Yeah, well, I you got to back the Lemoyne dude and Higgins. I'm sorry, I misspoke. In New Jersey, they're plus 102, so give me them at plus 102.
Alrighty. I found another game. This one's going to be the West Coast visiting the East Coast. Seattle Mariners facing off against the Tampa Bay Rays. And we have an over-under set at 8.5 when we have Michael Wacha on the mound for Tampa Bay versus Chris Flexen on the mound for Seattle. Your boy Chris Flexen, who's 9-3, Brett, has an ERA of a 3.81, and Michael Wacha, the former Mets pitcher, who has an ERA just under 5. This over under set at 8.5 feels a bit low to me. I'm going to be taking the over at minus 115, especially when you look at how these teams have really performed on the over under this year. If you look, Seattle, they're 55-48-3 on the over under this year, so they're about in the top 10. And then if you look at Tampa Bay, they are fifth in the over unders this year in the MLB with a record of 57-45-3 at hitting their overs. So both these teams have the active bats. Tampa Bay also just added Nelson Cruz to that lineup a couple weeks ago, so it should be very interesting to see. I think 8.5 is just too small. I wouldn't be surprised if it's at 9.
Yeah, I mean we will see what happens with that line. I think the Mariners, Higgins, not being talked about enough right now. They're playing some good baseball as of late. They were kind of pissed at the deadline, called out some players called out their ownership or whatever. So they actually made some moves to kind of correct that wrong and picked up a player from the Tampa Bay Rays, Diego Castillo. So that'll be an interesting series to watch.
It really will. I have one more baseball game, or one more baseball pick, I should say, rather, Brett, before we get out of here, because it's two games. I have an MLB parlay, and it's because the money line value on both of these favorites was a little too rich for me individually, so you're gonna find me on them together. And that's gonna be the Brewers and the Giants money line. You add them together, and they're plus 147. The Brewers, they're hosting the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have been absolutely atrocious on the road this year. They're 17 and 35. Honestly, I wouldn't have much of a reservation picking them to win outright on their own, but they're minus 200 on the money line. That's too rich for me. If it isn't for you, though, go ahead and take it because I do not see Milwaukee losing this game. And then the Giants are going to be in Arizona facing off against the Diamondbacks. And remember, there was a stretch where the Diamondbacks had lost 20 straight or something like that. The Diamondbacks are not having a fantastic year. They are the bottom of the barrel in the NL West. They are going to be the kicking pole for everybody else in that NL West for the rest of this season. The Giants have DeSclafani coming onto the mound for them to face off against Widener, and so they are minus 155 on the money line. I still don't like that. That's still too rich for me, kind of like what we've said, Brett. Minus 145, minus 140 is about the highest I will go in terms of a money line value that's a favorite. So I add them together, I get plus 147, a pretty good parlay for just two games.
Yeah, we shall see, Higgins. I guess I like both of those games individually as well, but I'm always afraid to parlay in baseball because baseball is such a weird game. Anything has happened. As Joey Votto put it so eloquently, he hit a blooper that carried for his first home run of his streak, and he misses out on 9 games in a row on his home run streak. It comes to an end at 8 games on a 109-mile-per-hour ball hit into the top of the fence at Citi Field. So, baseball, it's a crazy game. The Reds actually lost that game where Joey Votto misses out on a home run by inches. So,
So close.
just an absolutely crazy game. I'm afraid to parlay, but you laid it out beautifully. I think the Giants significantly better than the Diamondbacks. I think the Brewers significantly better than the Padres.
And one more topic
I'm
in
sorry,
MLB before.
Pirates.
Oh, you're
Pirates.
you're fine, Brett.
I
No
can't
worries
say
about that.
Padres. I can't say Padres.
Well, I was about to actually bring up the Padres though, because before we jump out of the MLB, we just got news Fernando Tatis is going to have season-ending surgery on his shoulder. Jacob DeGrom, he's on the IL and is going to have at least a rehab start or two before he comes back from his forearm stiffness. So at least in Oregon, I can't bet on the NL postseason awards for things like the MVP or the Cy Young. Brett, do you have those available? And who would you be looking at now? I guess for the NL, in terms of MVP, Nick Castellanos is probably a name that you could be looking at. And then for Cy Young, you got to be looking at some of those Brewers pitchers in terms of Corbin Burns, maybe a Brandon Woodruff or Freddie Peralta. And then even you got Kevin Gausman and then a slew of pitchers down in the Padres. So there's plenty of other Cy Young guys to potentially catch and take that from Jacob DeGrom now that he's on the IL for a second time this year. But it's just very interesting now because the NL has had front runners rather heavily throughout much of the season, and now that they are down, the books don't know what to do. So there should be some value to find.
Yeah, so National League MVP odds here in New Jersey on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Fernando Tatis minus 140, Trey Turner plus 320, Max Muncy, Trey Turner's new teammate, but they haven't met because I'm pretty sure Trey Turner is in COVID protocols. Max Muncy plus 500, Freddie Freeman plus 750, Jacob DeGrom plus 1600, and Buster Posey plus 5500. Higgins. Buster Posey and the San Francisco Giants getting some love in the top 6 there from FanDuel. For the NL Cy Young Award odds, you got Walker Bueller plus 350, Brandon Woodruff plus 390, Corbin Burns plus 400, Kevin Gossman plus 400, Zach Wheeler plus 460, Jacob DeGrom plus 600. Higgins, you asked if I see any value. Well, in the top 6, I would say Kevin Gossman for the NL Cy Young plus 400. I think those are fair odds for him at this point. He's technically tied for third with Corbin Burns at plus 400, but Gossman's had a fantastic year. The San Francisco Giants blowing everyone's expectations for that team out of that water, becoming buyers at the deadline, landing Chris Bryant from the Cubs. So, Kevin Gossman plus 400. That one piques my interest. I'm not going to bet it. I took long shot odds, Higgins, with the Seattle Seahawks on this episode. But Kevin Gossman's certainly interesting to look at, in my opinion.
The one name that you also didn't mention that I would be looking at just because he leads the NL in wins right now and could potentially be the first to get to 20, and if he extends away from some people, might jump up in value. Julio Urias with the Dodgers as well. I mean, those Dodgers pitchers, they have plenty of bats behind them to help make them become a standout for their season now. But just some interesting questions, interesting things to look at. That NL Cy Young award has suddenly become an absolute race with the DeGrom news of him being out for a second time. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very, very, very interesting, I'd say. Let's jump into the Levy lock and pick of the pod, though, Brett. Let's jump in there. You got the Levy lock. You won last episode, extended your lead on me, so go ahead and take it away.
All right, Higgins. Well, I'm going back to the Nats plus 102 on the money line. I just do not trust the Phillies bullpen at all. If this game is close late, the Nats are going to take it, Higgins.
All right, and I'm jumping way back to the beginning of this episode, talking about some Olympic men's basketball. I'm going with the United States minus 12 over Spain. I think that they have gotten things back in order. They are going to be doing just fine now. They have woken back up, and when you wake the beast, they take care of business. So minus 12, not too big of a spread for me there. Make sure to follow us on social media. We'll be giving out some picks between now and Thursday when our next episode comes out. That's at MBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. This has been episode 155 of the Next Best Bet.